Hello, everyone. My name is Father Brian Walker, a Dominican, and many of you know me from my reflections on the God Minute during the weekdays. Up until now, you've just heard me, but now you get to see who I am. As Father Ron mentioned, I will be sharing the Breaking Open the Word with him and others on Sundays. It is so good to be able to be with you and to share faith. A proclamation of the Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew, chapter 22, verses 15 through 21. The Pharisees went off and plotted how they might entrap Jesus in speech. They sent their disciples to him with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are a truthful man and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. And you are not concerned with anyone's opinion, for you do not regard a person's status. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it lawful to pay the census tax to Caesar or not?" Knowing their malice, Jesus said, "Why are you testing me, you hypocrites? Show me the coin that pays the census tax." Then they handed him the Roman coin. He said to them, "Whose image is this, and whose inscription?" They replied, "Caesar's." At that he said to them, "Then repay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God." We oftentimes think that there are so many distinctions between the way we act in society and the way that we act in church. Here in this country, we have a tendency to rationalize it because we feel that never the twain should meet. It's interesting. After all, we know this, that this is a country that was founded on religious freedom. And because of this, one cannot mix the two ever. What I do in society has no bearing on the way that I live my life or the way that I think according to my faith. The problem is that oftentimes we actually believe this. Do we really believe that everything that we do as a citizen of this country in society is not influenced by the way we exercise our faith? Or do we believe that the way that we exercise our faith has no bearing on who we are as American citizens? The premise of all of this is that we are the people that we are because of these rights given to us being born in this country. Supposedly, that's the way people such as the Pilgrims came here in the first place. They wanted to establish a place where they could be able to exercise their faith in freedom and could not and should not be persecuted. Every school child knows this. But there is a fine line that must be walked to make sure that these distinctions are not just something that we play around with in semantics or think about the things that should be said or the things that should not be said and what the differences are. In the gospel today, we hear how Jesus himself is challenged. We know that he always walked a fine line between what he said and how he acted. There were times when he point blank did not say the things that were pleasing to the people. Love your enemies is a perfect example of what was considered harmful in his time. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth was the law of the land, and still seems to be in some cases in different parts of the world. But in this particular pericope, He is challenging the people to understand the holy and also to be good citizens. There are certain responsibilities that we have as citizens, and there are things that we are obliged to do as followers of our faith. It all depends on how we interpret it. It all depends on what can and at times is offensive. We've had this discussion over the course of many years. A prime example is the question of abortion and what the law says. Then again, we have to ask, which law? There is the law of God, and then there is the law of the land. People have fought over this interpretation for so many years, and it seems as if we can never reach a decision for all. People find it hard, if not impossible, to separate their thought as citizens from their thought as faithful members of their particular faith and religion. People can't seem to separate because, according to some, the law of God should be the law of the land. There are those who don't drive a car because of their faith. And then there are those women who won't go anywhere with their heads uncovered because of the law of God. There are those who won't vote because of their faith. And then there are those who won't work on the Sabbath because of their faith. But then again, there are those who won't mention faith at all because it has no bearing for them, because they refer to themselves as atheists, unbelievers, and have no particular faith at all. For them, the law of the land is the only law. There is no conflict. I come to you today as a man of faith, and oftentimes I am even torn about what makes sense and about our freedoms. I realize that we have freedoms, especially as citizens of this country. But what does that mean? Jesus uses the example of the coin and paying taxes to Caesar and being faithful to God. These people were living at a time of occupation, and many of their freedoms were taken away. They were not always able to decide for themselves, very much like different parts of the world today. Yes, they were trying to trick Jesus in many ways, but I also think they wanted a good answer. They needed a good answer to give the people and to make everyone content and not to stir up the pot. Jesus basically tells them that they can live in society and do what is expected of them and still be a faithful people. Yet, not everyone will be happy with that choice. There are those who want everyone, and I mean everyone, to follow the same law and to do the same thing. If it's right for me, it will be right for you, whether or not you accept it. In the end, it's making sure that everyone does the same thing the same way every time. But we know that there are different ways of achieving the same goal. There are those of us who are Roman Catholic because we believe that it is the right path for us. There are those who are Lutheran and those who are Orthodox. There are those who are Anglican and those who are Baptists. Each of us follows the path that we feel is right for us. I am a Dominican preacher, but that doesn't minimize the work or fervor of the Vincentian preacher. We all have to follow our call. Each of us has a path, and I believe that each path can and should lead to the Almighty. Let us not be so quick to judge each other or the path, but let us learn from one another and help each other along the way. There is so much conflict in the world today. Each and every day we hear it in the news, always about our differences. We hear about wars and we hear about violence. Innocent people on many sides, but differences that refuse to allow us to come together and to be in peace. Deep hurts cause deep scars. Let us learn from the message of Jesus and do our best to listen to one another and not be so unforgiving. None of these conflicts are new. In some cases, they have been going on for thousands of years. We can decide what we are going to hold on to, and we can decide what we're going to let go of. Amen.